Welcome to Between the Shelves, the premier Save a Library podcast. I am your host, Alex, and I am joined once again by my co-host, Tory.
Hello.
And Kristina.
Hello.
This is a What Are You Into episode, so we're going to be talking about what we're into right now. I'm going to start, if that's okay with you both.
Tell us.
So, I'm not going to promise I'm not going to talk about Dark Souls, but I did finish Dark Souls Series 1, 2, and 3, and I was left with a gaming hole in my schedule.
Oh.
But I realized it actually is the 35th anniversary this year of the Game Boy, the Nintendo Game Boy. So I booted up my little emulator console that I have, and I started exploring some old Game Boy games. And I want to talk about the history of Game Boy, if I may.
Oh, wow.
Which has had quite an interesting development and legacy. So originally started in 1987 was when the development started. Nintendo wanted a follow-up handheld for their popular Game & Watch series, which are just very, 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 very basic, cheap handheld games that did one thing and one thing only. But Nintendo wanted to capitalize on the success of their Nintendo system, the Famicom, by having a handheld that would play multiple games. So they tasked Gunpei Yokoi, who, side note, invented that little toy where if you squeeze like two levers, it has like an arm come out on like a...
Oh, the punching thing.
The punching thing? Yeah, he invented that. So
Big puncher.
He was tasked, it's called the Ultra Hand. So he was tasked with developing the Game Boy. So he has a philosophy called lateral thinking with withered technology, which has sort of been adapted by Nintendo at large as their design philosophy for all of their consoles, which it basically boils down to using older, reliable, and well-understood technology in innovative ways. So that's something Nintendo's kind of famous for. They take older technology that's cheaper to produce but is well understood, and they try to do something new with it and innovative. And that's exactly what they did with the Game Boy. So instead of their competitors at the time, Sega and Atari, were coming out with their own handhelds that had color screens, 16-bit graphics. They were very polished, but they were also big and clunky, and they required a lot of batteries. So Game Boy did something else. They had a grayscale screen that is an old dot matrix screen, which looks much less impressive but requires less power. So they were able to pack everything into a smaller form factor, and it required less batteries. Much less, as a matter of fact. So it only required 4 AA batteries, where the Genesis and the Atari required 6, and got a quarter as much gameplay on those batteries. So that was a huge design philosophy that they were trying to stick to. So when they presented the Game Boy to President Yamanouchi, I'm sorry, I don't know his name. They initially scrapped the project because it looked ugly. He said it just looked completely ugly, so they scrapped it. But Yokoi and his design assistant Okada, they kept working on it in secret because they knew it was going to be a success. And when the Super Famicom, the successor to the Famicom, was about to be released, it had got some design delays and it was pushed back. So Yokoi presented it again to the president with some new tweaks to the screen that made it a little bit more presentable, and they went with it. And it ended up being a huge success. They sold it at half the price of the Game Gear, its competitors, and it just sold like gangbusters. I think they sold 118 million copies by the end of its run, which makes it the 4th highest selling video game console of all time.
To this day?
To this day.
Wow.
So yeah, it was just a huge, huge, huge success. And part of that success was they packaged the game, at least in America, with Tetris, which was it had existed before the Game Boy was out, but really put it on the map. They were really able to market the Game Boy to everyone, not just gamers. So it became a huge phenomenon, way exceeded sales expectations. So that's kind of like the history leading up to it. And if you're interested, there is the movie that came out, I think, a year or two ago, Tetris. I think it's on Apple TV+. It kind of goes, it takes some liberties with the history, but it does go into a little bit of this time period as well. And if you like Tetris or this kind of gaming era, it's worth checking out. It's a fun movie. So the Game Boy had a few spin-offs. They had the Play It Loud campaign that came out in 1995, which basically introduced different colors of the Game Boy. And I realized in my research, I never really owned the original Game Boy. I had one of these Play It Loud editions. I had the black one. It basically looks exactly like the original Game Boy. They just came in different colors. I think it's called Deep Black, which is a black Game Boy with like purple buttons and everything. It looked awesome. Then came the Game Boy Pocket the following year. It had a thinner body, and it came in more different colors, and it had a more efficient screen that required less batteries. Then they came out with the Game Boy Light, which only came out in Japan, and it was the first Game Boy that had a backlit screen, so you could play it in the dark. And then the same year they came out with the Game Boy Color, which
That's the best one.
Did not have a backlit.
it still didn't. No, the Game Boy Light is the only one that had a backlit screen. But the Game Boy Color came out, which I almost consider a completely different system because it had exclusive games. It doubled the processing power and RAM and everything else, and added full color screens and all that good stuff. So that is all nice and put aside. But what I really got into in my little history here is the accessories of the Game Boy, which I think you might find interesting. So I have pictures of some of them here, which I will be sharing on the website, hopefully. So these are two interesting ones. We have the Barcode Boy, which is basically a card scanner that you could hook up to your Game Boy, where you can swipe barcodes and it would interact with the games that you're playing.
They did this again at some point because there were Pokemon cards that you could do this with, like more recently.
Oh, on like a DS or something? Yeah. I'm not surprised. Yeah, the DS is actually the second most popular selling console of all time. So I'm not surprised if they didn't retry some of these gimmicks later on. Another one I wanted to share is called the Pocket Sonar. This one only released in Japan, and it retailed for $150 in Japan. And it is a sonar you can hook up to your Game Boy so you can detect fish when you're fishing in the lake. I don't know how the technology worked, but it did work.
And there is a fish on the marketing image that we are being shown for this, and he's eating the name of the product.
Yeah, it's interesting. And there's like a little photo of what it looks like here.
I guess that's the screen when you're using it.
I guess that's the screen when you're using it.
These are weird.
Who is this for?
Who is this for?
Well, this came with the cards to interact. Like, I think there were specific cards. So that is its own accessory. This is the Venn diagram of people who play Game Boy.
People who need sonar.
Who fish.
Yeah.
I think the reason I wanted to show the sonar one is just how popular the Game Boy was. Like,
this is actually for Tim, I think.
Yeah, exactly. See, there you go. There's one
He might
person
already
who
have
would've
one.
bought it. So, I mean, 120 million of these were out in the world.
Of the sonar?
No, of the Game Boy.
How many have those sold?
So,
7.
yeah, exactly. Here are some more I have here. Kristina, I think you're familiar with the top one. This is the Singer sewing machine, which had a dedicated Game Boy hookup. You could hook up your Game Boy to the sewing machine and program your own patterns, and the sewing machine would stitch those patterns.
Interesting. I'm very concerned about this lower one.
Yeah, I'm getting
Based
to
on
it.
its name.
Another one we have here is the Bishu, aka the Game Tunes. This was a radio tuner you could plug into your Game Boy. I don't know why you would want this. It looks cool, but you can't play a game and play this at the same time. So it's not like you can listen to the radio and play.
Do you know how much this retails for? I assume much more than a radio.
Oh, for sure. But yeah, it's bizarre. And then what makes it even more astounding is you're using the speakers of a Game Boy, which are horrible.
Tinny is
fantastic for listening to music. You can really hear the nuance.
Yeah. And then the last accessory I wanted to mention is insane. It's called the Petty Sedate. Mm-hmm. It is a headset that you wear while you're playing a Game Boy that connects to the Game Boy, and it releases nitrous oxide into your face as you're playing the game to keep you from getting stressed out playing a game. Exactly. And then its other selling point was that it could put your kid to sleep if they were playing too long or you wanted to put them out.
Sleeping with the fishes if you combine it with the sonar.
So this was controlled externally?
No, I think it's controlled by the Game Boy. I don't know if it's on a timer or like every time you die it releases a hit.
How can you put your children to sleep with it if they're the one playing the game?
You just have it on next to them, I guess, maybe?
Well, it's a headset. It straps onto your head, listeners, and it has a bar that goes across and plugs into your nose. It looks like something from Dune almost.
It looks like a medieval torture device.
Right. Or something you'd see from Saw.
But it's also a fun purple color.
What do they put on horses? With the
muzzle?
feed in them.
The feed bags?
I guess that's
Yeah.
called the feed bag.
It's sort of like that, except that you're drugging your children.
Besides the petty sedate, I will say, like, we're a little incredulous at, like, who would want all this, but that's because, like, our phones do all of this stuff for us now.
This is before iPad parenting.
Right, so this is, like, you didn't have a device that could allow you to program sewing patterns, so this was cool.
What about the camera?
Well, yeah, these are some more of the eccentric accessories, but of course there was the link cable where you could connect two Game Boys together, the Game Boy camera, which at the time was the smallest digital camera ever produced. So it has that mark in photography history. And in fact, I learned Neil Young actually had an album cover that was taken with the Game Boy camera.
That must look like garbage.
I know. I'll find that and put that up on the website as well.
It's not garbage, it's style.
Yes.
I had the camera in the printer, and there was nothing stylish about it.
I didn't have either.
Neither did I. I had a friend who had them, and they were infinitely entertaining. So those are the accessories of the Game Boy, which I highly recommend everyone look these up because they're amazing. But I do want to talk about the games of Game Boy very quickly before I give up the microphone here. So I played all of my games I grew up on, and I tried to play as many of the new ones as I possibly could as well. And I kind of worked it down. Some of them age like milk. Like, a lot of these games are horrible. I do not recommend playing them. But I did sort of get to like a top 10 games that stand the test of time. And here they are in no particular order. Tetris, I've already mentioned.
Of course.
Pokemon, we've already done whole episodes on Pokemon. Zelda Link's Awakening still holds up to this day. Very entertaining. Super Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins. I had this one growing up. Still as fun as it was back then. Still looks great, too. F1 Race is an F1 racing game. It really shows, like, it pushes the technology pretty far. Like, it's actually a great simulation game and very, very fun in an arcadey sort of way. Wario Land 2, not the Wario debuted on the Game Boy. Not at this game, in Super Mario Bros. Land 3, I think, is what the game he debuted in, but Mario Land 2 is a very, very fun game. Kirby Dreamland 2, another great game. Kirby also debuted on the Game Boy. And then I have I have 3 more obscure games that I brought here for you with some pictures. So these are 3 hidden gems, I will call them, for the Game Boy. The first is called Catrap, or Catrap, not sure, Catrap. You play as an anthropomorphic cat, and it's a very simple puzzle game where you have to navigate these very small worlds, pushing blocks around to try to work your way around these puzzle-like mazes, while trying to eliminate every enemy on the level. And you can see from the screenshot that I'm showing you two here, it can be a little tricky because you can push a block the wrong way and block your path and then have to restart the level. It's a very, very fun puzzle game. Like, it actually has a lot of depth. And I've been enjoying it quite a bit.
I really like this guy.
There's a little ghost man.
Or is it a shark?
I don't know what they are.
He's
The resolution is so bad you can imagine it to be whatever you want.
But he's got great sunglasses.
Yeah. So Catrap, definitely check it out. It's a great puzzle game. Another one is called Kid Dracula. You play as the titular son of the famous vampire. And basically, the story is whatever. You just have to defeat the rival vampire or something. But it's a great platformer. If you like sort of like the Castlevania style games, this one is really, really good. You start to gain like special powers every level, and they really mix up the gameplay. The platforming's great. The graphics are great for a Game Boy game. It's a lot of fun.
The screenshot of the graphics does look markedly better than Catrap.
It's like peak Game Boy graphics. That's Kid Dracula. And then the last one is called Bubble Ghost. Yep, another fun ghost game. So this is another weird sort of puzzle game where you're a ghost, and your objective is to push a bubble to the exit of each level, but you can only use your breath. So you're just blowing on this bubble. And there's all these obstacles that you have to avoid, like fans and candles and all sorts of stuff. So it's a really fun game, like tech demo almost. It's a very, very simple game. But like basically you're just playing as this ghost. You have one button, blow, and you're just pushing this bubble very carefully around these like labyrinthine mazes.
I have an important question about the game mechanics.
Yes.
The fan.
Yes.
Does it blow the ghost as well as the bubble?
No, just the bubble.
So the ghost is corporeal and heavy?
Yes.
Heavier than at least the force of that the fan is exerting.
So that's my games. That's what I've been into.
I just had a thought. I could really use one of these when I'm on the reference desk.
Yeah.
One of these petty sedates to calm me down sometimes.
Just mashing the A button on the Game Boy.
I'm really drawn to... I could take or leave... I'm not a gamer. I could take or leave the games that you just named. But the cover art, they really put a lot of effort into it.
That's why I brought the cover art into the podcast.
This guy, is he doing a thumbs up?
He looks like he is.
I don't know, but he's a cool guy. He's got big teeth.
I'm really nostalgic for this
He's got
era.
sunglasses like yours.
Early 90s cover art for video games is just great. These paintings.
Which look nothing like the pixels of
Nothing
the game
at
that you're
all.
playing. You have to imagine it.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Thank you. So that's what I've been into.
I guess I'll go
Who
next.
wants to go next?
My thing that I'm into right now is a book that I just read recently. I actually read it for school, and it is called The Warehouse by Rob Hart, and it came out in 2019. I have a summary. I'll read my summary. In 2024, Americans rely heavily on Amazon for a lot of things, from grocery shopping to logistics to entertainment, allowing the company to thrive and its founder to become one of the wealthiest men in the world. Why stop there? What if we allowed Amazon to take over every other aspect of our lives too? In The Warehouse, we get a glimpse of that potentially utopian world and the sordid underbelly that comes with it. America, as we know it, has fallen to an unlivable state of disrepair, and the only way out is to secure a job with cloud. Cloud will provide you with an assigned job, living space, transportation, and all the food and entertainment options you could want. All you have to do in return is wear your cloud-band smartwatch at all times, follow all of its instructions, and make sure you don't let your employee rating drop, or else. Paxton and Zinnia are two unenthusiastic recruits who have joined Cloud for very different reasons. Paxton as a last-ditch effort to get his life together, and Zinnia to dismantle the company from the inside. With their opposing goals, could they somehow help each other? Could their relationship develop into something more? And how the heck do they make the cloud burgers so irresistibly delicious? So this book is sort of a satirical kind of black comedy about a potential alternate universe where like an Amazon-like company controls everything in America. And everyone looks up to the creator of the company as like the hero that has saved America from becoming a wasteland. But if you live in one of these cloud cities, there's a lot of unsavory things going on beneath the surface. And it was just a really interesting and funny book. Sort of like a sci-fi. It's definitely genre fiction.
Yeah, it doesn't seem too sci-fi. Like, it seems like it could be a reality.
Yeah, I was going to say, is this nonfiction?
No, that's and I had to look and see what year it was from. 2019 is not that long ago, but it's still like, it sounded like it was happening right now.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it's scary realistic in a negative way, I would say. But because it's also sort of a light take on the subject, it's not upsetting to read. It's not depressing. And there's some cool play with the format of the story. Like some chapters are the CEO of the company. He's on a tour of all of the cloud facilities because he has a terminal disease. So he wants to visit them all before he dies. And he's slowly making his way to the one that the main characters are at. But you hear from him in sort of his how he established the company and his inflated view of himself and versus what others think of him, like a Jeff Bezos type of, he thinks he's the best and he's doing all this for the world, but is he really?
Is it a romance? Or there's just a romance plot line?
I would not call it a romance. No. A romance implies that there's a happily ever after, and there definitely is not in more ways than one. But there's a plot points that involve love. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
I think it's hard to be a romance with a spy, an undercover spy. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I just enjoyed it, and I would recommend checking it out.
All right, that's called The Warehouse?
The Warehouse by Rob Hart.
Rob Hart. Awesome.
I have a book, too. It's called A Letter to the Luminous Deep by Sylvia Cathrall, maybe, in terms of pronunciation. Not sure. A discovery outside the window of her underwater home prompts the reclusive E to begin a correspondence with renowned scholar Henry Clell. As they grow closer, they uncover a mystery from the unknown depths destined to transform the underwater world they both equally fear and love. But by no mere coincidence, a seaquake destroys E's home and she and Henry vanish. A year later, E's sister Sophie and Henry's brother Viren are left to solve the mystery, piecing together the letters, sketches, and field notes left behind and learn what their siblings' disappearance might mean for life as they know it. So this was a book, it was written all in letters between Henry and E and then Sophie and Viren, and there were like sketches and interviews from like scholarly magazines and stuff. And it's kind of more of like a cozy book. There's not a lot of, despite the summary I gave, there's not a lot of like danger going on. It's just like two scholarly people writing very formal notes to each other about their shared interest and maybe very formally discussing how they might have feelings for each other. And it's very cute, and it was very fun to read and also sort of discover the mystery that's happening here. So this is actually the first book in the series, so it does end on kind of a cliffhanger, but it was very good. This is probably my favorite book I read this year.
Oh, wow.
From your summary, which gave very different vibes from what you said after, I was like, oh, this sounds sort of like a BioShock type of, like there's a science, like a devious thing going on, but it sounds like it's a romance.
It's a romance. There is potentially a devious thing going on, but it's sort of in the background and it's not very apparent until later in the book what's really going on. The world that they live in is sort of mostly underwater and it's very water-based. There's only like one landmass in the whole planet, and everyone's doing like different studies. Like everything revolves around the university here and studying underwater life. And then E and Sophie's mom is like a famous architect who builds a famous underwater house.
Cool.
It sounds very interesting.
Beneath the Luminous Sea.
A letter to the Luminous Deep.
A letter to the Luminous Deep. I was way off.
Well, you did get Luminous.
I got Luminous.
That
That stuck out. All right, cool. I'll check that one out. Thanks.
Me too.
I think that's all we got. A nice short one this week. Thank you both for joining me, and listeners, we'll catch you next time between the shelves.